Boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. It's your boy Krabby Shack back again. Something a little different. It's mid-season GLDO, so I figure me and a good buddy of mine will get together and talk about what we've seen, what trades we've seen, and just kind of talk about what we think playoffs could look like. We're gonna go based over kind of what trades guys have made, whether we think they've been beneficial, just kind of our little insight stuff. But on that note, let me introduce you guys to Mboss here. He's gonna be helping commentate, kind of just talk with me about this. If you want to go ahead and say hi, man, go ahead.
Yeah, so my name's Mboss. I'm the coach of the Milwaukee Mammoth Swines, and I'm here today to do some trade analysis. So I think what we're going to do here is just go from the beginning of the season, take a look at the trades, and kind of give our thoughts on them. I mean, obviously, we aren't the coaches of these teams unless we are. So we can't really give that like super in-depth analysis, but we can kind of look at it from an outside perspective and give our 2 cents, you know,
Yeah.
and I'm looking forward to it. So you want
Okay.
to start now?
Yeah. So I was sitting here and I was thinking, how about we start with the psycho cut septiles? Oh my gosh, seems like they
Yeah.
were the first guys this season, and they traded what looked like Kanto Vulpix for a Alolan Vulpix.
Yeah. So I think this trade actually makes a lot of sense from their part.
Mm-hmm.
Have I mean, just looking at their team real quick here on my end, they don't really have any great sun abusers. So having that like drought ability from normal Vulpix doesn't give them a whole lot of benefit there. But Alolan Vulpix gives them an Ice Shard user, so they can use Unburden on Sceptile, and it has like Aurora Veil and some more other more useful moves for a team. So I would agree with this transaction. I think it was a smart move.
Oh yeah, definitely, man. I think that, I mean, just based on things that are on his team, the hail is really nice for certain things like Glacier. It's also, a great weakness policy procker due to, fast ice shards, and then also just having hail and chip damage like that, it's awesome.
Yeah, 100% agree.
Okay. Um, let's see. Did he make any other trades? So he also made a trade a little bit later into the season. He traded off Malamar for what looks like, let's see if I can find that again. Malamar for what looks like Quagsire.
Right?
Yeah, Quagsire.
Yeah.
Uh,
So I think from my perspective, this trade I think I like a little bit less. I think Quagsire is certainly like a interesting mon, but I don't think it has like that same offensive potential that you're looking for. Malamar also has that really unique niche of having both like Trick Room and having a strong offensive presence.
yep,
You
yep.
can also run Swagger on it, so you have like Swagger, Lumberry, strats or whatever. So I think overall Malamar is probably more versatile. However, I think with Glastrier, Quagsire actually makes an interesting pairing because Quagsire's only weakness is grass, and Glastrier, being an ice type, kind of stomps on grass types. So there's like an interesting synergy there where they cover each other's types really well. But besides that, I don't know how much I like the trade overall, but I don't think it's the worst trade in the world.
No, yeah, and I actually think I really agree with that. I mean, Quagsire is awesome. It's like you said, man. It's got one weakness, and it being a tier 4 with one weakness, that's pretty fair. Offensively wise, I think it's cool. I think it gets a really cool move pool. Abilities that wise, I don't think it's as great as what offensive power you got from Malamar, and like you were saying too, all the other options that come with Malamar.
I think Quagsire is like in VGC. I think Quagsire loses a little bit of its like effectiveness because it has a great ability for singles in like Unaware, where you
Mm-hmm.
just get to ignore stat changes. But in VGC, that isn't as important because there aren't as many boosting moves. So
Right.
and Quagsire just doesn't have that strong of an offensive presence. So you just kind of get like doubled up on and then knocked out easily.
Yeah.
So Quagsire just doesn't have that same longevity, and it doesn't have that big of an offensive presence. So I think Malamar is probably, in my opinion, would be the better mon for this team. But again, we're not the coach, so we don't know what they're really planning with it.
Yep. But it looks like that was it for that guy. That was his last trade before they cut him off. So why don't we go ahead and go into the Egyptian fluttering flygons. Jeez, what?
Yeah.
And it looks like they made all three of their transactions.
All right, lots to look at then.
Yep, starting with Weavile for Talonflame, Dragapult for Celesteela, and at the end of the season here, Indeedee for Clefairy.
All right. So I think my first thought with those, so I mean, let's just start with the first one, right?
Mm-hmm.
Weavile for Talonflame, I think I think it's a pretty solid trade from their end. I think Talonflame gives teams like having that Prankster Tailwind option on any team gives your team a lot more versatility. And Talonflame being tier 3 is super good value for that because if you look at your other Prankster Tailwind users, you have Tornadus and you have Whimsicott. And Tornadus is tier 0, Whimsicott's tier 1. So for looking at that like priority Tailwind, Talonflame in tier 3 is like great value for that.
No, yeah, no doubt.
And then I think their team before was all slow to mid speed to fast. So Tailwind actually benefits it fairly well because they don't have any like very slow mons that can't really benefit from Tailwind. Everything after Tailwind, the mons on their team are outspeeding pretty much anything in the format.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I like that trade from their end.
Yeah,
I
don't
agree.
think
they lose a whole lot from ditching Weavile.
The only thing just noticeably looking based off of what they have here left is, I mean, they do lose one beat up user, like a really good, solid beat up user.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think losing a beat up user is definitely not like ideal, but I think in most cases Dragapult is just going to be better at using beat up because it has a great speed tier, can't be faked out, and like I think in general is probably just the better beat up user.
Mm-hmm. And then
then if we go to their next transaction, which
is Dragapult.
Yeah, which was Dragapult for Celesteela. And this happened after Celesteela got dropped by Curry, right?
Yeah, after Curry came and rebuilt the whole team.
Yeah. So this one I think this is probably one of my trades from the season that I didn't understand the most. I think Dragapult synergized really well with the rest of their team. Like it seemed almost built around it because you had the beat up user, you had Clefairy for redirection, and like Dragapult is just such a strong and versatile mon.
Mm-hmm.
And trading it for Celesteela, in my opinion, weakens the rest of the team because you don't have beat up for like all your beat up users are gone for Cobalion besides Cottony, but Cottony's speed doesn't make it very effective in that role.
Yep.
And Dragapult next to Clefairy is a really scary combination because Dragapult's a very potent offensive threat that just doesn't have a lot of bulk, so it really appreciates that redirection. And then even looking at the back, like Aquajet Azumarill after some Phantasms from Dragapult can clean up teams fairly well.
Oh yeah.
I feel like Celesteela was more of a opportunity grab, say like to word it badly, where it just kind of became open and they kind of went for it.
Yeah, because knowing
really
that
regarding
it's
how it affected their team.
Right. I agree with those. I see in my eyes. I thought him getting rid of Indeedee was kind of. I get it. Clefairy's. It's essentially the same thing in a way.
Yeah.
But okay, but this is a really hard one because both very Clefairy's very bulky and could be very offensive wise with an amazing move pool. And then you also have a fairly bulky Indeedee, which does the same stuff that you would want it. It does everything you want it to do that Clefairy can do. So I kind of agree with that trade a little bit as well. I thought.
Wait.
Okay, yeah. So thinking of
Celesteela?
No, I'm talking about the Clefairy Indeedee.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
We're talking about different trades.
No. No, I'm talking about Clefairy and Indeedee.
Okay.
First glance, looking at it, I'm like, why would you do that? Okay. But in my eyes, I see a very now looking back, I see a trade where you get a very bulky Clefairy compared to an Indeedee, which is an Indeedee. I mean, you use it for what? Follow me. Clefairy though is I've seen it used in draft as also a very bulky redirector, but then a super offensive max target. So I actually think that I like this. Yes,
bro.
Oh, this is Clefairy.
Yeah, that's Clefairy.
My eyes fooled me, you friends. This is what you come to my channel for, though. A bunch of dumb stuff.
Yeah, so the way that I kind of look at the Indeedee for Clefairy trade is your trade like Clefairy does its role very well. It does follow me. The downside is with Clefairy is that's about all it can do. It's very good at its role, right? It's very good
Mm-hmm.
at follow me, helping hand, friend guard stuff, but it doesn't put on offensive pressure. Indeedee, on the other hand, isn't quite as bulky, but because of Psychic Terrain, it is arguably an even better follow me user for setup mons, and then it provides some measure of offensive pressure. I mean, Expanding Force is a terrific move, especially when you have Psychic Surge as an ability.
Yep.
So I think that I don't think this trade is like in my opinion, this trade is pretty neutral, like in a vacuum, because you're trading the offensive pressure you get with Indeedee for like the defensive ability of
For
Clefairy.
more bulk.
Yeah. However, on his team, I think I like Indeedee better
Mm-hmm.
solely for the reason of I think Clefairy really shines when it's on teams where the mons that surround it don't need support. So stuff like Spectrier, Cinderace, even Dragapult, where you can just max your Cinderace next to a Clefairy and destroy your opponent's whole team.
Yeah.
On a team like this, though, where your biggest offensive threat, if you don't boost, is Celesteela, I don't think Clefairy gives you as much value because A, your team is already fairly tanky, and B, you need that like extra offensive pressure that Indeedee puts on simply because your team doesn't put off that much pressure if it's not like boosted up by Anger Point on Tauros or beat up on Tabalion or
Yeah.
even something like Meteor Beam on Celesteela.
I agree with you. I agree with that. Yep. I I don't know why I was sitting there thinking, oh man, yeah, Clefable. Clefable's awesome, you know? No. But okay. Well, let's move on to the next team. We'll move on to the Detroit Delmise, where he's made, I want to say, all three of his trades. And he has, he started,
Yeah, he's made 4 trades actually. Looks like.
yeah. No, it's just three.
No, there's one up. There's one up further. Yeah, it's Liefeld for Morgan.
Okay. Okay, so, well, then let's move into it. Sylveon for Comfey. Sure.
Yeah, I think. Do we want to just go at these one at a time so we're
Yeah,
not
let's do
getting
that.
confused with Mons and whatever?
Yeah. While we go back, I will talk about the trade one at a time. I'll go back and forth to the.
Yeah.
Okay, so.
So yeah, so this is one of the first trades of the season, right?
Yep.
Sylveon for Comfey,
Mm-hmm.
and I think this is probably one of the best trades of the season, honestly.
Yep. I agree.
Comfey is just like a fantastic facilitator. Comfey lets you do so many strategies, and it makes your team so unpredictable because grass and fairy coverage is just able to proc weakness policies on so many mons. Like you can, I mean, looking at his team now, right? You can proc weakness policy on Gudra, you can proc it on Hitmonlee,
Wishy
you
washy.
can proc it on Aggron, Wishy Washy, Golurk. Just like almost every mon on his team is able to just get procced by Comfey.
Mm-hmm.
And also, Comfey makes bulky mons even more bulky.
Oh yeah, priority healing.
Yeah, it's kind of insane, especially next to something like Gudra, which is very hard to kill in the first place. Just giving it that versatility to be like, I could have weakness policy, or even Gudra gets something like Sap Zipper. And I know he didn't have Gudra at the time of this trade, but I think he had a plan in action from
Right at the
week
beginning
1.
is what it looks
Yeah.
like. Yeah.
And I think Comfey is just in draft. Comfey's a great mon. It doesn't do a whole lot besides healing and proccing weakness policies, but it's so good at that job, and it's so high value for I think it's tier 3.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it's tier
Even if
2.
it's tier 2, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
even for tier 2, it's just crazy value because it gives your team such like unpredictability in the prep.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And then he traded something for Gudra. It was
That was one of the last trades, I think.
okay. So he traded Lipard for Lipard for Morgrim there.
Yeah.
I think that this was a trade that was necessary for him to do his plan. Like he had to trade down so that eventually he could trade up. Is what I think this is what it looks like it was.
I'm just double checking here. Morgrim's a tier 3, I believe, or
Mm-hmm.
yeah, tier 3, and Lifeheart is a tier 2, if I remember correctly.
Yeah,
So,
it is.
I've got both of them pulled up right here, and I'm looking at their prankster moves, and to be honest, I don't think Morgrim is lacking a whole lot of moves that Liepard gets. Liepard has access to stuff like Rain Dance or Sunny Day, and access to Charm, along with like a few other things. But for the most part, the core moves you're going to be using stuff like Thunder Wave, Taunt. I mean,
and it gets light
that kind of
screens.
stuff. Yeah, Morgrim also gets dual screens,
Yep.
which Liepard doesn't.
Mhm.
And it has access to Swagger, which I do not believe Liepard gets.
Right.
So they actually perform different roles. I like this trade a lot.
Mhm.
I think Liepard as a prankstermon just doesn't do its job as well as Morgrim, and it doesn't do any job besides being a prankstermon. And then
Right.
Morgrim obviously frees up those points for you.
And I mean, and especially offensive wise, I mean, there's gonna be more power coming, or just offensive like in general. There's gonna be more power coming from Liepard rather than Morgan, but even then, it's not a crazy big difference.
Yeah, and I think Morgrim's gonna do its job better than Liepard will, especially with those dual screens, because dual screens is just disgusting on a prankstermon.
Yep. And then for his third trade, he traded Apple for Gudra.
Yeah,
Dude, just based off of everything for his trades from the beginning to the end, he was able to build a team and just stack it. I honestly think that just based off of trades wise, this gentleman here has made the best trades so far. Gudra over Flapple, 100% agree with that.
Oh yeah, every day of the week, Gudra's an absolute monster, right? It has like just so much coverage. It can be physical or special. It can be bulky. It can be offensive. It can be weakness policy. It can be crazy specially bulky with AV. Like it just has so many sets it can run. It's an incredible pain to prep for.
Oh yeah.
Not to mention just being super strong and bulky at the same time.
Oh yeah, and then like honestly, the Comfey and the Gudra pair so well together.
Yeah, actually, the first team I ever built for VGC was Comfey Gudra, and then it had like a Lapras and some other stuff. So I know that combo works even in a competitive setting.
Oh yeah, and that's it too. So
the...
my first competitive draft league, I ended up with a very similar type dragon with Comfey. I had Dragonite and Comfey, and that was, let me tell you, it was nice because you would
being able to just instantly proc that policy and go to town, especially with that Huron next to you, is just crazy.
Yep. Well,
also,
yeah.
Gudra has a solid speed tier where it can be run in Trick Room, or it can be an outside of Trick Room relatively fast mon. Like it's just, I think Gudra is honestly one of the most underrated like flexible mons in draft.
Agreed.
It needs support to work, but if it has that support, it's absolutely terrifying.
Oh, agreed. All right, so on to the next. We will look at the Snowpoint Sylveons. He traded Slurpuff for Ribombee.
Yeah. So looking at his team, let me just pull it up real quick because I don't want to be lying. But yeah. So I think I like this trade from him.
Yep.
Slurpuff really needs something to give it on burden. Or else it just kind of sits there, right? Its whole thing comes from just being blazingly fast and having like good support moves and like String Shot, and I think it gets Taunt or whatever. Like it has good coverage and good, yeah, it has like Fake Tears, Helping Hand, stuff like that. But if you can't proc that on burden, it just kind of turns into a medium speed mon that just like sits there.
Yep.
Because it's not giving you speed control because it's not moving before your opponent. You can't really abuse Fake Tears or anything. And on the other hand, Ribombee is blazingly fast, 124 base speed, which is faster than most other things in the format. Plus, it gives you access to stuff like Speed Swap, which his team being like a middling speed team is.
It could really take advantage of it. Oh yeah, I mean, I could only imagine speed swapping into Throw and then Throw just going to town. You know.
Yeah. It also gives them a weakness policy proc for Lapras in Absorb. Gives him a weakness policy proc for Moltres because he can use Fairy Move, something like Draining Kiss.
Yep.
So yeah, I think this is a great trade from him.
Yeah, and I actually think this is the only trade he's made so far this season. And to be honest with you, just based on how he's been playing in his own, his team hasn't really needed much. I mean, he's just been playing very well.
he just has the insane flexibility and like defensive utility of that like Moltres Lapras duo, where they're
Hmm.
just so hard to kill and they complement each other so well.
I've been sitting here waiting for the day he goes and puts Inte out on the field, and then Inte and Sharam just go to town, man.
Yeah, it'll happen eventually, I'm sure.
All right, so on to the next. We're gonna look at the Nexus Ironworks. We're gonna kind of skip over the Worcester Sunfisks. We'll do a team recap over these over this team, and then we'll also do a team recap over the Coughing Smokers. But we're just gonna do our initial trades, and we'll kind of explain to you why here in a minute why we're kind of skipping over them.
Yeah,
So,
Ironworks actually had a trade before that.
oh, he did, yeah. He had
Yeah.
Colossal for Regilecki.
Hmm. So yeah, this trade also is one of those ones where it made a lot of sense to me. Um, when the team was first drafted, my original thought was Colossal on a rain team just doesn't synergistically. I don't think it makes a whole lot of sense, right? If you set
No,
the rain, you're A, doing more to yourself with Surf or Aquajet, and B, you're weakening your max flares. You're just like you're making yourself more prone to dying to water moves from your opponents. Just doesn't make a ton of sense. Also in draft, Colossal just requires phenomenal support to work because your opponent knows it's coming and can prepare for it. So taking him on instead, like Regieleki, which is the fastest mon in the game, can be physical or special, can run a variety of different supporting sets even. Putting that on a team that like is already fast and offensive, I think makes a lot of sense.
oh yeah, for sure. I agree with you. No doubt. His other trade was Magnazone for Siglif, and that was a coach-to-coach trade, actually.
Oh, he actually had there's another one
Oh,
before that
yep,
actually.
Ludicolo for Hippowdon. So he actually started getting rid of his rain team here. One of his he got rid of one Swift Swim user. He had two Swift Swim users, which I think in
Actually he had three because Poliwrath also gets Swift
oh yeah,
Swim.
true. Wow. Okay, so he was going super hardcore rain team.
Yeah, so because of that, I actually think this makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
Even though it's kind of conflicting weather, you don't have to run Sandstream on Hippo, and Hippowdon gives you that like it gives you an electric immunity, which is like pretty big for a team like this because he didn't grab a lightning rod user, right?
Mm-hmm.
But having a mon that can just switch into a max lightning and like literally not care, especially when you have stuff like Blastoise or, I mean, even like Poliwrath, Politoed, that kind of mon does not want to take max lightning because I mean, super effective.
Yeah.
So having a mon that can switch in and threaten the electric types that threaten those mons, and then also tank those hits. And Hippowdon's just, I mean, it's bulky, it has recovery, it can just stick around and be annoying.
Yep. Yep.
So yeah,
Yep.
I think I like that trade, especially because he had two other Swift swimmers on his team.
No, I agree with you. All right. So where was the next one? The next one was the Magnazone for the Siglif coach to coach trade.
Hmm.
I think this was kind of. I wouldn't say it was needed, but I think that it was actually is a good trade. If you want to do things where you want to set your tailwind, you now have a decent tailwind setter.
Yeah, and like Siglif just has a bunch of like interesting moves it gets. It's relatively fast if I remember correctly.
Yeah. Its
Base
bases.
97 speed, so
Yep.
it's gonna in draft that's fairly fast. And it gets Tailwind, it gets Trick Room, it gets I think it gets Trick Room anyway. Yeah, it gets Trick Room, it gets like Speed Swap, Hypnosis, Imprison, just a bunch of different moves that you can bring on it.
Yep.
Not to
Yeah.
mention a base 103 special attack means it's an offensive threat as well.
Um, the thing though is, it's like for me, he traded Magnazone for this. That's now put him into a gaping hole of not very much steel coverage. I mean, yes, he does have the Scizor, but Scizor, well, you know what? Let me actually stop and rethink about that. Scizor's not too bad on this team because it's a rain team. As long as he's got rain up,
Yeah.
he's got the steel coverage he really needs.
And I think Magnazone is one of those mons where, like, Magnazone, the issue is it's 4 times weak to ground, and with Max Quake just being such a good move, like, it's just phenomenal max move, and Quake hitting Rain mons neutrally, and because hitting Regieleki, like, so well, especially with the pickup of Regieleki. I don't think there's ever a reason to bring Magnezone over Scissor or Regieleki.
Oh yeah, that's true. I agree with that. And
Yeah, I think
then
that's a good trade as well.
yes, sir. Yes, sir. And then the last trade for this gentleman was Cradilly for Polyrath.
Okay, yeah, so that also makes a lot of sense to me. Um, right, he dropped Ludicolo. It looks to me like he was trying to free up points almost.
It
Not
looks like
100% sure on that.
the website here hasn't been updated on that. So I'll let Wakeman know.
No, he dropped Credilli to get Poliwrath.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah,
Jeez,
so I
man.
think that makes sense. Another Swiftsim user is always good,
It's
especially on rain teams because it just makes you more unpredictable, especially one that's physical as opposed to special.
yep.
Um, and Credilli is like such a slow mon, and he doesn't have a great trick room mode on this team. So I think it makes
No,
a ton of sense.
and it also kind of puts him in a situation if he's down, to just Credilli next to say Blastoise and he's Storm Drain. I mean,
Yeah, Credilli's main function is Storm Drain, right? But on a rain team,
it doesn't make much sense at
it's
all.
usually going to hurt you more than it's going to help you. I
Mm.
think what he was going for would just getting Storm Drain boost through Surf or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But I think just having another Swift Swim Mon is probably just going to be more effective because it applies immediate pressure and doesn't need boost.
Oh yeah, I agree. I like that trade. Okay, and then on to the next would be, well, I guess my team would be next. So my first trade was actually Roserade for Togepi.
Yeah, so
I'll just
I
let you kind of
know.
talk about my team.
Yeah, you don't want to give yourself
Mm-hmm.
a great review or anything. Yeah, so I know you talked to me about this one a little bit. And essentially, I know your team, you didn't have redirection, right? And redirection is just great in draft. Plus, I know you're planning to make some future moves. So essentially, by dropping Roserade, you freed up points. And I don't think Roserade added a whole lot to the team anyway, right? Roserade kind of has that awkward thing where, yeah, it has Sleep Powder and has some like useful support moves, has some offensive presence, but it has a really awkward speed tier. And that hinders it a lot because to solve that, I mean, you could choice Scarf it, but then as soon as you click Sleep Powder, that's all you're clicking for the rest of the game.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't have like phenomenal attacking moves, just like as a grass type. And it adds another ice weakness to your team, which you be with your first picks being Garchomp and Zapdos. An ice weakness, like you just don't want to have more of those.
Right.
Um, so picking up Togepi makes a lot of sense. It's a tier 4, so it frees up those points for you in the future. It gives you Follow Me. And even if it's a pretty passive Follow Me mon, it's still tier 4 Follow Me, which is pretty solid. It's going to do its job. It's going to protect the mon that you want to protect for a few turns.
And it should at least take
So
2 hits.
yeah, exactly. You throw a Focus Sash on there, it's taking 2 hits for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I like that trade a lot from you.
Mm-hmm. Thanks. Okay, and then my second trade was actually Mimikyu for Ferrothorn.
Yeah, so this trade I think makes a lot of sense. Your team, right? You have so fair. If you look at Ferrothorn as a mon, it's weak to fire, it's weak to fighting. That's it. Besides that, it's stupidly bulky and hits a lot of things really hard. So if you look at your first 2 picks, which were Garchomp and Zapdos,
Mm-hmm.
Ferrothorn, its fire weakness is covered by Garchomp because Garchomp can max Quake or it can Earthquake or do any variety of things to hit fire types. And then Zapdos is going to hit those fighting types for super effective flying damage. So you can kind of pretty easily just get rid of those threats to Ferrothorn, and Ferrothorn in the end game can clean up.
Yep.
In addition to that, Ferrothorn gives you like an offensive steel type. So those ice types that are so annoying to your first 2 picks can get discouraged from coming or just stopped by Ferrothorn because it'll take max quakes that they might have and it'll just obliterate them with Steel Spike.
Mm-hmm.
Not to mention getting more bulky in the process. So I also really like this trade from you. I don't think Mimikyu added a whole lot to the team, mainly just because your team is so fast or middling speed that you don't really have a good mon to take advantage of Trick Room. And that like fairy coverage isn't super valuable because you're not that afraid of those like dark and fighting types.
Right. And then my third and final trade was Reggie Steele for Wheezing Galar.
Yeah, so I also really like this team, or this trade, sorry, because in my opinion, Ferrothorn performs essentially the same role as Registeel, except it's more versatile. Registeel is never going to be offensive. It doesn't have the offensive stats to do that. Even if you give it a weakness policy boost, it's still just not going to be doing a whole lot. So it can pretty much just only be defensive, and because of that nature, your opponent can prep for it and bring answers.
Right.
On the other hand, Ferrothorn has the versatility where it could be offensive with Life Orb or Assault Vest, or it could be a defensive endgame set, which functions similar to Registeel. So in that respect, I think Ferrothorn just functions better than Registeel in most cases, because Registeel still is gonna not like to eat fire or fighting moves, and Ferrothorn even has less weaknesses because it's not weak to ground.
Mm-hmm.
So like I like that trade a lot. Not to mention Ferrothorn has Leech Seed, so that is more recovery if you're trying to run like that endgame set. And just I think overall, when it comes down to it, Ferrothorn gives you way more versatility than Registeel does. It lets you do more things. It makes it harder for your opponents to prep for. So I like that trade a lot.
Okay. Well, I appreciate that, man. I like them trades a bunch too. All right, on to the next team.
I just wanted to add one more thing.
Go
I
ahead.
forgot to even mention Wheezing.
Uh-huh.
I think in draft, Wheezing is great. It gives you that like versatility to shut down your opponent's strategies. It gives you the fairy type that you want for your team. You know, I don't have a whole lot to say about it, but Wheezing just lets you mess with your opponents. Is essentially what it comes down to.
Yeah, that's what's awesome and fun about it. That's my it's become a favorite of mine so far this season.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so then we will move on to the I'm gonna let you try to say it. It's Ian Burst's team, Chambana Shellos. Please correct us. He'll probably get mad at us because I know he's like, broke down the phrases and how to say it before. So
it's fine. We can take it.
Oh yeah.
We probably deserve it too.
So he made what looks like only one trade this season for Drudagon for Auroras, and that happened the week we played. So that was a pain in the ass to get used to.
So yeah, I like this trade for sure. I think Auroras is actually a really underrated mon in draft. It has it so it's weak to steel, which is like its big thing. It's 4 times weak to steel, which is, since Steel Spike is such a good max move, not great. However, Burst has a Cinderace.
Yep.
Which, if you ever needed something to stop steals from going to town, you have it, right? Cinderace is pretty much the best mon you could have for that. So like the synergy is already there between the two of them. And Auroras has so many sets it can run, right? It could be a Trick Room max target. It could be supportive with like Aurora Veil and Snow Summon Tail there. Or you could run it. I mean, its speed tier is decent enough where you could run it Scarf and it can outspeed mons. You can run Specs and just click Blizzard.
Yep.
Like,
yep.
It's versatile enough where it's gonna get the job done. And it's bulky enough. I mean, it's actually pretty bulky.
It is pretty bulky. That's what I was just looking at.
Weakness. So like, I think Auroras is just a solid mon, and I think it makes a lot of sense on his team. It gives his Trick Room mode more threat to it. Because before you had Aromatisse, but then not a whole lot to abuse it, and Auroras kind of gives you that like concrete Trick Room abuser besides Caparaja.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, just in general, his team is definitely one of the top tier teams of our league. Like, this team, you look at it and it's just like, damn, this team's it's really scary, you know?
Yeah, it has a lot of threats to deal with, and Auroras just adds one more threat that you don't know in what form it's going to come.
Yeah,
like the rest of his
for
team.
sure. And also, I mean, his whole team, and when I look at it, I see a lot of offensive power, and then almost everything on his team also is really something. It also brings something really important to, like, just
it brings a unique strategy.
Yeah, because you can get Will-O-Wisp by a Rotom Wash, or you get the Rage Powder. All of the other little niches that you have is there.
his team synergizes really well because each of his mons have something different that they can do from the other ones.
Yeah,
They
almost
really
in,
differentiate each other well, but while also covering each other's weaknesses.
yeah, almost everything on his team can either be a supportive Pokemon at some point in time or offensive some point in time. You know, so
Yep, exactly. And
it's really
Aurora's just
cool.
another one of those mons.
Mm-hmm. So let's move on to what looks like there's only 2 guys left that made trades. We'll go ahead and do your team.
Yeah.
You traded off what looked like Greedent for Pseudo Wudo.
So yeah, actually the first trade that happened was Crustle for Stoutland, but due to some
Okay.
just wait forgetting to throw it in, that one shows up as happening later. But
yeah.
that's
So
actually what happened first.
Crustle for Stoutland. I like this trade a lot. We had also really talked about this. This gives you a second Intimidate user. Stoutland with an amazing move pool, always good for either a supportive mon, which your team has. It's also one of those teams where everything on your team can either run as support or offensive. Stoutland,
Yeah.
just the offensive pressure is always there from it. I really like that trade.
Yeah. And this is the trades that I was making here. The Stoutland and Sudowoodo trade were kind of thought of like in tandem. I knew I was dropping Crustle and I wanted something to replace it. And I knew I was dropping Greedent, which is actually where this trade came from originally. I knew I didn't want Greedent on my team anymore.
Yeah.
Because I didn't think Greedent wasn't adding a whole lot to it, and I never could see myself bringing it. So I think Stoutland's just a more versatile mon that can do more things than Greedent ever could.
Oh yeah, no doubt. Because I mean, there's also the opportunity for you to run Sandrush stuff. And then going on to the Greedent to Sudowoodo, dude, I agree with that. To me, Greedent, all it is for me is a team preview thing to just sit there and scream at you. Hi, I'm a low budget Snorlax. You do need to be scared of me because if I do set up, I'm gonna fuck you up. But other than that, that's it. If you can stop a way to shut down a belly drum, Greedent's, it's really not great.
Yep. And the thing is, Greedent, because it's budget Snorlax, essentially, it doesn't have recovery. It hurts it a lot, and it doesn't have that same bulk. So you really need it in Trick Room for it to do its job effectively.
Yep.
And getting it in Trick Room and then getting a belly drum up is just too much to ask.
Oh, always. You gotta
on the
pick
other
one.
hand, yeah, Sudowoodo offers that like immediate pressure I'm looking for. It has Rockhead plus Head Smash, so it has 150 base stab.
Yeah.
And
And
even
you
if it's
never know
not
when
that
that's
fast,
coming.
yeah, exactly. So even if it's not that fast, if you can get it in Trick Room, it can just launch those attacks. And it has, even if it's not the greatest mon, I mean, it obviously has flaws. It's speed, it's Spadef. It's not like the best attacking stat, but I think it's gonna do more for me than Green could.
No, and I agree with that. I also think it's it's one of those things. If you're scared of taking a hit, it's also sturdy. You're like, okay, you know what? I don't have another mon to put in here. You got 5 mons built. Only 3 of them work. You have to have something that's just a guaranteed sack or take 2 hits. Sudowoodo's that for you. Sturdy is so good because of that situation there. It's almost like a guaranteed. If you know a Max Geyser's coming, you don't care if Sudowoodo dies. That's what you brought it for. It gives you 2 turns,
Yeah. And
So
I think the big thing is Sudowoodo, it's essentially, the way I look at it in my head is I swapped Greedent for Stoutland and Crustle for Sudowoodo. And Sudowoodo basically puts on the same pressure as Crustle, but it doesn't need to set up.
yeah. Okay, so
if we want to move on to the last team.
On to the last one is the Gardner Guzzlords with the team coached by Bubble. It was Tornadus Incarnate for Whimsicott.
This was probably one of the more puzzling trades to me. Obviously, again, we don't know exactly what his plan was with it. But in my opinion, Tornadus is so much more versatile than Whimsicott, and even if it has less support moves, the ability to have it be that like offensive max threat or even non-max threat is just too good to pass up. Whimsicott doesn't have that much offensive pressure. On the other hand, Tornadus has, I mean, if I pull it up quick, 115 base attack and 125 base special attack, as well as 111 base speed. So it's an offensive menace. It has Airstream, it can realistically max and do a lot of damage
Yep.
and be threatening. On the other hand, if Whimsicott's coming, you know what it's going to do. It's going to set Tailwind. It's going to maybe charm or fake tears, but nothing too unpredictable.
Yep. But yeah, I kind of agree there. Like whenever you're looking at it, if you have the chance and you want that fast, so last draft of the VBA, I had this same toss up right at the beginning of the season. Do I pick Whimsicott or do I pick Tornadus? I was picked 2, so I knew I wanted one of those 2. I ended up going with Whimsicott, and I don't remember my reasoning for it. But now thinking about it, and the more I've gotten to it, Whimsicott, it's great. You either have to Babiri Berry it, Akaberry it, or Focus Sash it. The difference is, and it's like you were saying too, its offensive pressure is not quite there. I mean, don't get me wrong, it does hit pretty hard. Whimsicott can hit pretty hard, but
it's just not quite on the same level as 125 base special attack.
Exactly. I mean, the only other thing I could look at is maybe he wanted it just for like something fast. If he wants like, almost like a priority move going off. Like 116 can be kind of hard to outspeed sometimes,
I think my other note for this trade is I don't like the Grimmsnarl next to the Whim. I think those are just too passive. Like they're both very passive like prankster mons. Like obviously Grim can be more offensive, but in general they're both fairy types. And they both are prankster mons, and while they don't fill the exact same role, they're similar enough where I feel like it's kind of almost redundant to have both of them there.
Yep, I agree. But in that case, just me on a personal level, knowing Bubble and the way he is, he has a reason for it. I'm sure he has a reason for it.
we aren't Bubble, so we don't know what he's planning with it. This is just kind of what we're seeing from afar,
Yep. Well, on to the next thing. We're going to go ahead and just kind of kick it off here as like a little ending thing to show y'all the ranking, give y'all like what we think. What do you want to say? Maybe the top 6 we think might make it, or actually...
playoffs are top 6. So, I mean, if we want to give our projections for playoffs,
okay.
That works with me. Otherwise, I don't. If you want to do something different,
no. I agree with this way. So this is the top 6 ranking right now, and I know that there's a little bit that's a little off right now. I know you're what?
Yeah, it is worth noting. Yeah, so I won my match this week. It just hasn't been inputted yet. So I am 5-2, and Curry is 2-5.
And you're 5-2 at +3, I believe. So
because I won my set in 2.
So what it would be is actually you would be in the 3rd spot, and then from 3 down would just kind of shift one position down.
Yep.
So right now the rankings: the Detroit Delmise, Snowpoint Sylveons, Milwaukee Mamoswimes, Corpus Christi Crabbies, Miami Flare, and then the Coughing Smokers. Right, that's the top 6 right now.
Yep, that's top 6, and then after that it's the Sceptiles, the Ironworks, the Shellos, the Guzzlords, the Stunfisks, and the Flygons.
So I think that the top 2 right now, these 2 guys, they're sitting pretty good. I think that if you could win out the rest of the season, you could be up in between the top 2 and maybe move one of them too. But I think that they're pretty close to locked in.
Yeah, I think they're also 2 of the. They've been playing really well. They've had good prep. Their teams are really solid. Like I think those would be my 2 blocks for playoffs. I think.
No, but yeah, while you figure that out, I agree. I think that these 2 gentlemen have pretty much locked it in. That if they just continue playing out the rest of the season the way they've been playing, I think that they're in a good spot. They're looking really well. I think that there's a little spot here. Just depending, I'm having one of them seasons just on my own where I don't necessarily know where I can put myself on this list. I could either make it into playoffs or not. You, on the other hand, I believe that you have a really good shot right now.
Okay. So I'm back. Sorry.
You're good. Yeah, but so what I was just saying is I believe that those 2 guys definitely, if they continue playing the way they're playing, they're in locked. I think that from the 3rd position down, it could really be a very big, well, not from the third down, from the fourth position to the sixth position. Those three spots I think fluctuate week to week.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and if you're looking at the rankings right now, there's currently from fourth to ninth, or no, fourth to 10th. Sorry. All of those guys are still in contention, like 100%.
Hmm.
If you like down, because it's we have what? It's sorry, my record not being on there's kind of messing up my math here, right? We have 3 4 and 3s, and then 5 3 and 4s.
Right.
So, or 4 3 and 4, some amount of 3 and 4s and some amount of 4 and 3s. There's a lot of them. But basically, what that means is none of those guys are out.
No.
If you're 3 and 4, you can still very easily like win out and make playoffs.
Yep.
And I can see it happening too. And 4 and 3 is by no means safe. You still have to win several more games. Even 5 wins isn't safe yet, just because
No.
of how close it's going to be here.
Yeah, this run between third place to sixth place is just, it could fluctuate, you know.
Yeah. I think after this week, we'll start to see some people lock up playoff spots. If the 4 and 3s, or if like 2 or 3 of the 4 and 3s lose or drop their games, I think 6 wins becomes a pretty reasonable threshold to expect for playoffs. Just with how it pans out. So I think all the guys with 5 wins, if they can win one of their next 3, they're looking good.
I agree.
For playoffs, especially with that, like if they can maintain their differential. I think 6 wins looks like what to aim for, especially just with how tight it's going to be.
Yep, I agree.
Because if you're looking at it, all the guys with 3 and 4, they can't get over 6 wins, and the 4 and 3 guys would have to win out to get over 6. So 6 looks like a pretty
the aimable spot.
It could also get messy. There could be a few people at 6, and there could be a cut at like 5 and 5.
Yeah, I could definitely see some 50-50 records where they're gonna have to go to differential or wins versus each other in during season.
Yeah, I could definitely see tiebreakers actually mattering in this one for deciding who makes it.
Yeah. So, do you think that you have a top 6 that you think could make it?
Well, so looking at it here, I think the Delmides and the Sobians, I think, are pretty solidly in there. I would like to put myself in there, but I don't think I can guarantee anything.
Right.
Like, don't want to give myself a big bet or anything. And I know my schedule is pretty tough in these next few weeks.
Yeah.
I've got to play Rainbow Boy this week, who's also 5 and 2. I've just got some tough matchups up ahead. So I don't want to count myself in for sure, although I'd like to consider myself in there. I think I personally would put. I think Burst is another one. He's 3 and 4 right now, but I am looking at his team and how he's played. I know I beat him. Our set was really close. He lost 2 and 2, but it was close games and came down.
Oh yeah, those games were just definitely. If we met in playoffs, it would be I think bloody knuckles versus each other again.
And I think all of Burst's losses have been close, and he's played really well. So I would not be surprised at all to see him bring it back. And like I said, he's 3 and 4. He's definitely not out of it. He can definitely still make it, even if he breaks 500. There's still a chance.
Definitely.
So I'd like to put Burst in there, and then my last 2. I'd like to put you in there probably. But I can't say. I think. I don't know how the Coughing Smokers will do. That's probably one of my lower end. Looking at his schedule, he still has to play Burst. He still has to play Raz, and he still has to play the Guzzlord. So that's a pretty tough schedule
for the rest of the season.
Even if Burst is 3 and 4, his team is still scary, and requires a lot.
Yeah,
so I think I don't know if I want to lock in the Smokers at all.
I think that they're one of them. Knowing Trunks he's a really good player, but I do agree. I think that he's teetering. I think that there's a couple guys that are teetering. I think myself. Yeah. I think Archery and the Miami Flare, which I don't know actually. So since he's taken over this team, he's kind of just been coming from the bottom and just rising straight to the top. Like he's been doing really well.
Do you know which week he took over the team?
He took over the team. I want to say maybe week 3.
Okay, because if he took over the team week 3, he has gone 4-1 since taking over the team, which his only loss was to Rainbow Boy.
Yeah, actually, that is when he took over the team week 4. So he played Rainbow Boy, and he's played from then on.
Yeah. So I would put I think I would put the Flare in. His upcoming schedule, he plays the Sceptiles, he plays the Delmise, and he plays the Stunfisk. So definitely some rough matchups in there, but not unwinnable ones. It's not as bad of a schedule as some of the other guys have.
I agree.
Looking at the Sceptiles schedule here for the last 3 weeks, the Sceptiles play the Flare, the Ironworks, and the Sylveons. Which is a really tough schedule. To be completely honest with you, the Ironworks I believe are 3-4 at the moment.
Yeah, they are.
The Flare are again 4-3, and Sylveons are obviously 5-2. So I think that schedule is really tough, and for that reason, I think my top 6 would be Delmise, the Sylveons, the Flare, myself, you and the Krabbies, and then probably Burst and the Shellos. But again, I can't say anything for certain just with how close our division is.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. I mean, there's just not much talk. I mean, it's so one thing I wanted to stir up was I actually was kind of hoping that there would be getting a little closer to the end, a little bit more shit talk would start happening, but it's still a little slow in our desert division.
Yeah, if you got to start that, just start calling people out for no reason.
Yeah. I know. Who do you have left this season?
So yeah, my remaining schedule is I play Rainbow Boy this week.
Okay.
And then I play the Fluttering Flygons and the Guzzlords.
Okay.
So not the easiest schedule, but not the hardest for sure, especially out of the rest of the guys.
Yeah. See, and I still play the Guzzlords, then the Stunfisks, and then the Ironworks. So I mean,
again, not the easiest schedule, but not the hardest.
If I lose to one of them, it kind of is like we just flop between spots. So
yeah, it's so close. Like literally at this point, we could see playoff spots get decided by crits.
Yep.
It could be that close. Like it could just come down to RNG in one game that could decide who makes playoffs and who doesn't. And honestly, I'm here for it. Like it's a really exciting race to watch.
I agree with you. I agree. This has been a really fun season. Like I've really been stoked about this. I'm really glad, dude. I've met some really cool guys that just always down to prep, always down to just chat and hang out, man. So it's been fun.
Yeah, for sure. I've met a lot of good people here, and I mean, also another thing to mention is even the playoff race for spots 1 and 2, because playoffs are 6 people and 1 and 2 get a bye through the first round.
Mm-hmm.
Even that race is going to be close, right? There's 3 people at 5 and 2, and the 4 and 3s can definitely still get there.
Yeah.
3 and 4 is probably a little bit out of reach of getting to the 1 and 2 spots, but like even that race is going to be competitive. I think it's just going to get really intense in these last few weeks and be a really fun time to watch and be a part of.
Definitely, man. Definitely. But on that note, man, I think we're going to go ahead and end this recording. I would love it if you guys would give me a like, a subscribe, a dislike, a big old fuck you. I don't care what you want to do. Just make sure you give me some sort of attention so that way I feel loved. And I will catch you guys later. We do have a match this week against the Bubble Hulk and the Gardener Guzzlords, and I will see you guys then.